Ta-da! Hi, everybody. Welcome to our fourth ever episode of the Nexus. This is our little broadcast where we take our team from DyNexus Recruiting and Staffing. We come around your questions and we examine them from both sides, both the employer and the candidate side. And we're going to try something new with our format. We'll have two videos for each question from here on, one addressing either side of the issue. And this first one, we're going to address the employer side. Before I do that, our Sky Mall contest is about to wrap up, and we've had several contestants come in for that, and I'm going to do a separate video in just a couple days, and we will announce the winner of that. But on to today's topic. We're talking about interviews today. What did I just say, the candidate? Yeah. Great. Everything's going great. We're talking about interviews today. Interview skills, interview tips. Maybe even some interview horror stories might come up from time to time. But how to sharpen your interview skills from the candidate's perspective. We're going to start with our guru and Yoda, Ben Schrenzel.
Well, the most important thing a candidate has to take in mind when he's considering how to interview is he's got to take responsibility for the interview, even if it's conducted by the hiring manager. And by that I mean he's got to figure out what is the purpose of me being at this interview, what is the goal to be achieved, what is the information that has to be presented to the client, to the hiring manager, and make sure that it gets presented. For example, if there's certain aspects that you, the candidate, feel are really important about your background, and for whatever reason the interviewer doesn't go into them or doesn't go into them in adequate depth, you can say things like, you know, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about something that I think is important, and then start talking about that. And so during the process of the interview, keep in mind that you have to be responsible for making sure that all of the important information is conveyed to the interviewer, number one. Number two, when the interview looks like it's winding down, you've got to reflect in your mind and say, was everything covered? Was any topic left with a less than good understanding of an answer? And take that opportunity to say, you know, there's a couple of things I want to just say before we end this interview, and that is, and then go into it. So again, the key thing is to take responsibility for the interview accomplishing what you intended to accomplish.
I like that. And when you're talking about how it ends, it makes me think of like being on a date. and that final impression can be as important as the first one, can it? How you actually exit the room, how you wrap that up, knowing when to shut up and not and not keep talking.
Yeah, I mean the truth is to coach a candidate on how to interview is a many-hour process. So to sum it up in a brilliant statement is kind of difficult, you know. But I do think taking responsibility for making sure you know what you want to accomplish and making sure it was accomplished.
Yeah.
And not depend upon the interviewer to do that for you. He may not be a good interviewer.
What are some common comments that you guys hear from when you get feedback from the employer of things that have not gone well that maybe could have been addressed proactively?
I find sometimes when working with getting feedback from the hirer that the candidate went off on a tangent and started talking about things that were not important to the hirer, which really brings up an important topic when interviewing is the importance of, sometimes as a job seeker you think you know what's important, and so you start to really elaborate and hit home on things that you think are important, but the hiring person has a different idea of what's important. So one of the traps that people come into is trying to achieve their own objectives and not giving enough consideration to the objectives of the person they're interviewing with.
I wonder how valuable the most simple thing is to just take a breath. I mean, to just walk into an interview and remember to say, I'm going to breathe, and really try and hear what that person's saying. Because you do come in with your mind racing about all the things you think you have to say and you have to get out, and it can sometimes prevent you from hearing what they're really asking and send you on a tangent, or worse yet, make it appear that you're not a good active listener.
Yeah, that's really true. One of the things that I've worked with a couple of candidates actually face-to-face, and I would recommend it of anybody looking for a job or going into an interview process, is what's really difficult for people is the actual process of getting nervous, sitting down in front of someone and answering questions, literally putting your body and mind in the situation of an interview. And people tend to shy away from that because it's a fairly uncomfortable practice. And so they think that it might be enough just to think about it and prepare themselves mentally for this interview, but then when they actually get into the room and see the person and are in their suits and are in the environment, then it makes them, they're not as prepared because it's the first time they've physically been in that situation. So I find that it's extremely helpful to do a mock interview, to sit down with someone and dress up and go and sit down and pretend to actually do it. It's just like as an actor, a lot of us here on this chat are actors, and there's a big difference between going into an audition having ill prepared and going into an audition knowing exactly what it feels like because you've been there and you've done that. It's a big difference, and it's the same thing in the professional world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there's another quick advice I always give every candidate, and I know you've all heard me say this, is to slow your speaking down. Just slow yourself down the way I'm doing right now. Just speak more slowly. It diffuses the situation, makes it less intense, makes it easier for the person listening to you to understand what you're saying, makes it easier for you to express yourself because you're not racing to find the right word. You're just explaining it slowly and calmly. And it just lowers everybody's pulse rate. And it makes the person doing the interview think that you're not racing to give him an answer, but you're really giving consideration to the question. So I would strongly advise everybody, just slow down, if nothing else. And of course, as Julian talks about role-playing, that's really valuable for a lot of people, you know, to put themselves in that position so that they're not overwhelmed by the physical environment when they get there. So that's a very good point.
Yeah, might feel goofy, but you'd be surprised how much it will help in the long run.
Another basic thing that goes a long way is just knowing the company too. I've had several different employers at various different times contact me and say, you know, so and so just didn't know anything about us. And that's never a situation that you want to leave somebody feeling, especially if you're looking for a position. It's easy if you've done 5 interviews this week and they've all been with VARs to bunch all those VARs into one category. But in reality, if you had spent a little time around the website, you'd figure out that, oh, these guys are really much more focused on manufacturing and finance because I can see some of their client stories here, versus this person who does a lot in the retail space or, say, food distribution. Just that one line alone and knowing exactly what kind of industries that they've been working within recently is a good jumping point off for a good conversation afterwards, and it goes a long way with people, too.
Yeah, I'd add to that, you look up the LinkedIn profile of the person who's going to be interviewing you, for heaven's sake. You know, absolutely do that so you can break the ice, talk about the school you went to, whatever the case may be. But if you're a candidate and you don't research the website of the company and the LinkedIn profiles of the people that you know of at the company, you're really making a big mistake.
Yeah, and there's a certain amount of social media stalking that's acceptable, I think. It would be fine to go to the person and say, hey, I looked up your profile, I noticed this. and they'd probably be impressed with that level.
Well, I got to tell you, when I interview people to come to work for our company, if they haven't looked at our blogs on our website, they're disqualified.
Wow. Also, when Aaron was talking, I was thinking you could expand that idea of research into the city and the area, because that might bring, knowing the area that they're from could also help bring up some conversation. I'm going to wrap this up in a second. Have I missed anything else that you guys are burning to say?
I'm burning to say something.
I thought maybe.
I have 2 more points. One, I think it's always beneficial for candidates to have at least a question or 2 for each person that interviews them. Some people, hiring managers, get very put off by if a candidate does not ask a question. So even if it's a little bag of generic questions, it makes hiring managers feel good to have been asked something. It makes it seem like you care. So I think that you should always have at least a question for each person that's interviewing you. And in addition, I just would like to advise to be aware of nonverbal communication points, such as chewing gum, if you're on the phone, if your TV's going in the background, or you're eating something, or I once had a candidate flush the toilet. That was really not a good thing. They did not get past that interview, I'll have you know. So don't do that. be aware of what, we can hear what you hear. So, be aware of what's going on around you and what people want to listen to, the hiring people.
Well, I think that's a great story.
So we should leave the toilet unflushed? Is that the message?
I don't know. Just take care of it at another time, maybe.
What a great way to wrap up. Let me just recap for a second. We've talked about having a proactive plan of what information you feel needs to get out by the end of the interview. We've talked about the need to take a deep breath and slow down and make sure you're really listening to what's being asked. How helpful a role play situation could be and practice could be. The necessity of researching the business and the place where that business is and the people that you're going to be speaking with, having questions for you to ask them to show that you're proactive, and an awareness of your nonverbal cues that you may bring in, not excluding toilet flushes. So, beautiful. So, if you want to learn more about us, you can go to www.dynexusgroup.com. We have more information about our business, special partner rewards program, and other things you'll find information on. Please send us your questions. We want to respond directly to what you're thinking and feeling. And very soon we'll be announcing another contest. But that's it for today. Thank you so much, everyone.
Matt, one quick thing. If anybody wants to, we have that download of the audio from the job search and rescue that talks about how to conduct an interview from the candidate's perspective. Yeah, well, yeah. So if people want that, they can ask for that. We could send them that link.
All right, that's also available, isn't it? Am I talking about the right thing? The webinar? I'm talking about something else.
No, the job search and rescue audio program.
Got it. Yes. Send us an email, and we will send you that file. Thanks a lot, everyone. We'll be back soon.